The Syrian civil war and the rise of Boko Haram are widely defined by their visible causes: political repression, sectarian divides, and religious extremism. Beneath these social eruptions is a physical reality that failed first. In every case, a foundation of extreme environmental stress loaded the gun years before the first shots were fired. Both the Pentagon and the United Nations Security Council formally categorize this stress as a threat multiplier. Natural resource scarcity does not directly pull the trigger on an armed conflict. It destroys local livelihoods, dries up community wells, and weakens state institutions until the conditions for war are fully assembled. To understand the 21st century's most devastating wars, we have to look past the battlefields and examine the extreme weather anomalies that immediately preceded them. Between 2006 and 2010, Syria suffered the most severe drought in its recorded history. Human-induced climate change made a drought of this intensity 2 to 3 times more likely. The impact was immediate. In Syria's agricultural heartland, crop failure and livestock mortality reached 60%, forcing 1.5 million people to abandon rural areas and migrate into the cities. This sudden migration pushed urban infrastructure to the breaking point. The Assad regime's failure to manage this pressure cooker of unemployed, desperate migrants created the socio-economic friction that would eventually ignite the country. By 2011, the cities were filled with the economic desperation and political resentment that allowed the Arab Spring to spark a full-scale collapse. The 4-year drought engineered the exact demographic and economic vulnerabilities that made the Syrian state collapse highly probable. In West Africa, Lake Chad was once the primary resource sustaining the fishing and farming economies of 30 million people. Climate change and unsustainable water use have shrunk the lake by 90% since the 1960s, effectively erasing the region's productive land. This environmental collapse created a massive livelihood vacuum. Millions of people now face absolute economic desperation in a region where government support is virtually non-existent. Extremist groups like Boko Haram and ISIS now deliberately exploit this void. They recruit heavily from the communities that lost their lands to the disappearing lake, offering food and community where the state offered nothing. When climate change destroys a region's fundamental economy, extremist violence becomes a functional byproduct of basic survival. Sudan in 2025 represents the ultimate extreme scenario, where record-breaking climate disasters and a brutal civil war strike the same population simultaneously. In August 2025, extreme flooding physically blocked emergency responders from reaching a landslide that killed at least 1,000 people. The war made preparation impossible, and the climate made response impossible. Warring militias have actively weaponized this scarcity by deliberately targeting the few remaining water treatment plants and reservoirs. In this environment, climate change creates highly specific, weaponizable vulnerabilities that rival armies exploit to amplify civilian suffering. The current data from Syria, the Sahel, and Sudan confirms that rising global temperatures now function as a direct, large-scale security crisis. By 2050, the World Bank projects that up to 216 million people could be forced to become internal climate migrants as coastlines flood and farmland fails. This displacement heightens the stakes for nuclear-armed nations like India and Pakistan, who are already competing over shrinking water resources in the Indus River system. This threat reaches directly into the world's most powerful armed forces. The Pentagon assesses that 1/3 of all U.S. military installations face significant risks from extreme weather and sea level rise. There is a way to redirect this map. Urgent investment in adaptation funding and early warning systems can reduce that projection of 216 million migrants down to roughly 44 million. The ultimate question is whether the world will choose to pay for resilience now or pay the significantly higher cost of fighting the wars that climate breakdown will otherwise trigger.